Hey, it's Melissa, and you're watching Behind the Trend. Our tagline? Short stories, big insights. And tonight, we're diving into something extraordinary. The kind of story that makes even seasoned Wall Street veterans stop in their tracks. A sitting Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, is now the target of a federal criminal probe. It's not just about money or policy, it's about trust. Trust in the people running the world's biggest economy. And trust in the idea that America's central bank, the Fed, stands apart from politics. All right, let's take this slow, because this one's big. It started quietly. Late Sunday night, reports surfaced that federal prosecutors issued subpoenas to the Federal Reserve. They're investigating a $2.5 billion renovation of the Fed's Washington headquarters and whether Powell misled Congress about it. That's serious. But here's what made jaws drop. This isn't just a routine audit or inquiry, it's a criminal probe, and it's targeting the single most powerful person in global finance. Now, if you're wondering, wait, has this ever happened before? No, not like this. This kind of scrutiny on a Fed chair? It's unprecedented. The news alone sent a chill through the markets before trading even began. But what Powell said next, that's what really set this story apart. Within hours of the headlines, Powell released a statement. You could hear the frustration between the lines. He called the probe a pretext, meaning, in his view, this isn't about building costs or missed details. It's about something else entirely. He said, the threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on what will serve the public, not the president's preferences. Think about that. He's saying the investigation exists because the Fed didn't do what the White House wanted. That's a stunning claim, and one that lands right in the middle of a long-running fight over who controls the direction of the U.S. economy. Powell's message was clear. I'm not being targeted for what I did wrong. I'm being targeted for doing my job. That's a heavy statement, and it sent ripples far beyond Washington. So, why does this matter? Why are investors and even foreign governments glued to this story? Because the Federal Reserve isn't supposed to bend to politics. Its independence is what gives the U.S. dollar its power. It's what keeps inflation decisions credible. When you hear interest rate hike or cut, that's the Fed deciding what's best for the economy, not what's politically convenient. Now imagine if that independence disappears. Imagine if future Fed chairs look over their shoulders before making a decision. That's the fear right now. And here's something else that raised eyebrows. The U.S. attorney overseeing the case is Jeanine Pirro, a Trump ally. Timing matters too. Powell's term ends in May 2026, just a few months away. And President Trump will soon decide whether to reappoint him or name someone new. So, people are asking the obvious question. Is this probe about justice or leverage? By Monday morning, you could see the panic forming. Dow Jones futures slipped 0.5%. NASDAQ futures dropped nearly 1%. And the U.S. dollar, usually a sign of strength, weakened against major currencies. Meanwhile, gold prices jumped. Investors ran to safety. That's what happens when confidence cracks, because markets don't just trade numbers, they trade trust. And when people start wondering whether the person running the Fed might face criminal charges, well, that's enough to make even seasoned investors uneasy. Some analysts said it felt less like an economic story and more like a constitutional one, because if the Fed chair can be legally pressured, what does independent central bank even mean anymore? Powell didn't hide. He stood firm, even defiant. He said, in plain words, the Fed will continue to make decisions guided by data, not politics. No emotion, no apology, just calm determination. But make no mistake, this wasn't business as usual. You could sense the tension underneath, because behind that calm exterior is a man trying to protect an institution that's now under fire. Economists from both parties, even those who've disagreed with Powell before, warned that this could do real damage. One analyst said, if Powell falls, so does the wall separating money from politics. It's not about liking Powell or hating him. It's about what this means for whoever comes next. And that brings us to the politics of it all. You could almost see this one coming. Republican Senator Tom Tillis said the probe threatens both the Fed's independence and the credibility of the Justice Department. His words, "If anyone doubted this was political before, they shouldn't anymore." That statement exploded online because while some see this as holding powerful people accountable, others see it as punishing the wrong target. President Trump has distanced himself from the investigation, but not from the criticism. He's called Powell's leadership disastrous and accused him of slowing economic growth. The feud between Trump and Powell isn't new. It's been simmering since the early 2020s, when Trump pushed for rate cuts and Powell resisted. But this time feels different. This isn't a tweet storm. This is the Justice Department, and it's setting a precedent no one's comfortable with. Let's bring this home for a second. You might be thinking, okay, Melissa, what does any of this have to do with me? Well, everything. Because the Federal Reserve's decisions affect your mortgage rate, your savings, your job, even the cost of groceries. When markets shake, so does confidence. And confidence is what keeps economies running. If people start believing that interest rates are being set to please politicians instead of stabilizing prices, that's dangerous. Inflation could spiral, investments could wobble, and the entire system could start to lose credibility. That's what's at stake here. Not just Powell's reputation, but the very idea that money policy should stand above politics. So, what happens now? The investigation continues. Powell's lawyers are cooperating. The Fed is carrying on with business, at least on the surface. But the pressure's building. The next few weeks could shape who runs the Fed next, and how much power that person really has. Every new inflation report, every interest rate decision, every public comment, it's all being watched through a political lens now. Powell says he won't step down. He insists on finishing his term. But his words carry a quiet warning, not just to politicians, but to whoever follows him. Don't trade independence for approval. So here we are, a central banker under criminal investigation, a market that's holding its breath, and a country once again asking how far politics should reach into the economy. Whether you admire Powell or not, one thing's clear. This moment will echo long after the headlines fade, because what's really on trial here might not just be a man. It might be the independence of America's financial heart. I'm Melissa, and this has been Behind the Trend. Short stories, big insights. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay grounded, and I'll see you next time.